Welcome back, troglodytes, to the Trogly's Guitar Show. Today we have a... What? Oh no. Did I buy a fake Les Paul? Les Paul cutaways aren't supposed to be like this. Yeah, that's definitely not right. Well, I guess I might as well just throw this thing away.
Whoops!
Just kidding. This is a limited edition guitar known as the Les Paul Florentine. Now, why is it called a Les Paul Florentine? Well, that's the name of this cut. What you're used to seeing on a Les Paul is more so styled after the Venetian cut, which is more of the rounded cutaway that you'll see on some of the hollow body arch tops. Whereas this one's more Ted Nugent style with the sharper Florentine cutaway. But Les Paul Florentine, isn't there something else already called that? Yes. In the mid-90s, one of the very first chambered Les Pauls was called the Les Paul Florentine. They're also called like the Bantam series. Basically, they were a Les Paul custom that had special sound chambering to them as well as F-holes. And they're really awesome guitars. If you've ever played an ES-LP, they're nothing like those. They still feel like a heavy, substantial Les Paul, and they still sound like a custom. You can check out this old review on one of those. But has Gibson ever done the Florentine cut on anything else? Yes. The Guitar of the Month in 2008 was the LP 295. It was basically the blending of a Les Paul and an ES 295. And let me tell you, if you have never played a vintage 295, you need to. I owned a beat to crap one that just had finish checking everywhere. It was turning green. It had many modifications and the ugliest headstock repair you had ever seen. And it was unplayable after the 14th fret, but that thing howled. And ever since then, I fell in love with the 295. So I would really love to check out one of the LP 295s. But that one was a gold top. It had the classic antique headstock with the crown and binding on it. Split parallelogram inlays with the flowers pickguard, kind of Mary Ford style there. And it also had a Bigsby with Clusen tuners and 57 classic pickups. About 1,000 of those guitars were made for that series, but then about a year later, they followed up with this limited edition run of 350 vintage Sunburst versions. However, this one got some additional special features. Now, obviously, the biggest difference between this and a normal Les Paul is the Florentine cut. Initially, this cutaway style was meant to make it easier to get higher up on the frets. Does it do anything between this and the other one on a Les Paul? Personally, no, I don't think so. I think you've got just about the same fret access. It's more of an aesthetic choice. You've got the same Bigsby on this one, but what makes these better than the 295 version is they come stock with a Schaller roller bridge, as well as locking Grover tuners. Because, I mean, these Bigsbys, they're not Floyd Roses. You're not meant to do super dive bombs with them. It's just supposed to be some nice light. But it's nice to know that you have super tuning stability while doing that. Similar to the 295s, these ones were stamped on the back of the headstock with a little number that'll tell you which one it is out of 350. Huh. Where's my stamp, Gibson? Here's another interesting story with this one, and I might be wrong about this, but since this was a limited edition run from 2009, and this is made about 2/3 of the way through the year in 2010, they either did another small run that I'm not aware of, or this is a warranty replacement guitar. If something happens that they have to replace your guitar under warranty, and it's a special limited edition guitar like this, sometimes, if it's feasible for them, they will have to just custom build you another one. And I'm almost curious if this is one of them, because it does not have that special little stamp. but this is 1000% a Gibson made product here. But all the specs are identical to that run of Florentines. So this one's a little bit extra special in that sense. And if you love the Florentine cut, but you don't like vintage sunburst or gold tops, in 2015 there was a Les Paul Supreme that they did this cutaway style with, but that's kind of like a blue-green sea foam color. And it also has a Bigsby. So if you want this style of cutaway, you better like Bigsby's. So let's go ahead and throw this one on the bench and see what it's made of. We can see the pickups are the Burstbucker Rhythm Pro, as well as the Lead Pro. Not too much going on in the cavities of this one. You can just very faintly see the stamp of VS for Vintage Sunburst. And then in the bridge route, you see LPFT for Les Paul Florentine. In the circuit, the bridge pickup reads 7.96 k ohms, and the neck pickup is a 7.4. Something really interesting about this guitar is it's one of the few Gibsons that doesn't come stock with a Nashville-style bridge from the USA plant. Since it has a Bigsby, they give it a Schaller roller bridge, and these are made in Germany, as you can see right there. However, they kind of use the same setup as a Nashville-style bridge with a stud in the body. And here you can see that these were never drilled for a regular tailpiece, so that tells you, yes, it is a factory Bigsby. But just for some extra facts here, if you ever see these two marks on a regular Les Paul, that is what is referred to as a snake bite, and those are the holes left over from where a Bigsby is mounted. Now on a vintage guitar, that can completely destroy the value of it and make it a great deal for a player if you don't mind having two holes there. But this one being stock, a lot of people ask if you put like a Vibramate unit on your guitar, will it leave marks? And I think this answers your question. You see this little mark right here? That is left over from these little black pads. They do slightly react to your finish over time, even if it's just a light impression like that. And here you can see the impression that the Bigsby has left on the guitar itself. So despite a Vibramate unit not actually having to be drilled to the top like that, it uses the tailpiece studs, you will still have some minor marks on your guitar. But here's how your Bigsby works. It just kind of mounts right there. You have a little washer in here, and then you have a really thick spring. It doesn't compress too much, that's why Bigsbys are kind of subtle. And then this bar just latches right on top of that, and that's what gives you that pushback force. And at the same time as you're moving that bar, you see how those little black things are moving? That's where your strings rest against. And as you can imagine, it's a little bit tricky to put the ball ends of the strings on through that. So what somebody's done is they've purchased this Vibramate unit, which basically does the same job, but latches onto it like so. That way the string changes are much easier with that thing. So that is something added, that is not factory. Ambered knobs on here, they look pretty nice. And it is a really beautiful two-piece maple top. I mean, despite having the Florentine cutaway, I think the real showstopper for this one is the finish, the flame top, and the Bigsby. It really kind of draws all the attention away from this. This guitar really reminds me of one that Slash has. The fretboards on these guys are rosewood. Now, we do have some fret issues on this one. This must have been owned by somebody that has a very heavy hand. As you can see, there's quite a few divoting and flattened spots. You will need to do a level recrown job on this guitar to get it back to 100% playability. Now, as you'll see in the tone demonstration, yeah, you can play it, but there's a few notes that just don't ring out quite as clearly as they should, and we'll dive deeper into that during the condition segment. The nut for this model has been replaced. It's not glued in, but it definitely fits in nice and tight, so no real worries there. But I thought, hey, while I have a nut off, we talked about this in that The Paul video for the 2019, and it is true. All necks will have this little strip of maple in them. So even if you think your guitar is a pure mahogany neck, you actually have a small little strip of maple for the truss rod channel. Another cool thing to see here is how they put the binding on. It looks like they just route out a little channel along the edge of your fretboard, and they just kind of hammer that stuff in there. So interesting. These have your standard Gibson 24 3/4 inch scale length with a 1.69 inch nut width and at the 12th fret a 2.08 inch width. First fret neck depth is 0.85, and you're up to a 0.99 inch at the 12th fret. The truss rod cover for this one reads standard. Once you take that off, you can see the truss rod cavity itself. Truss rod works just fine. And unfortunately, we have these rings around the tuners. What is that caused by? Somebody being lazy. When you string up a guitar, make sure you snip off any extra ends that are poking out, because otherwise they're going to dig into your finish like that and leave you with that visual eyesore. But you do have the Les Paul model silkscreen and the Gibson mother of pearl logo. On the back with the control plates off, you can see everything is original on this one. You have 4 Gibson branded pots. They use these tiny little blue capacitors. And the only other interesting thing I saw is right here. It's either the number 4 or the letter J. Not really sure what that stands for. And here's what your toggle cavity looks like. But you can see it is a 2-piece back. There's actually some decent figuring into this wood as well. A little bit flamey on that side. It appears to be a 1-piece mahogany neck, and you have a traditional Gibson serial number with the Made in USA 2010 stamp, and these are Locking Grover tuners. This example weighs 8 pounds, 14.4 ounces, but feels a lot heavier than that. So that likely means there's a lot of weight in the body. Now that we've seen what makes this guitar up, let's go ahead and hear how it sounds. So while playing this guitar, I don't really like this roller bridge because it's not quite as firm fit as a saddle. So you hear this little movement. When you're doing bends, you can hear that. Then on the B string, instead of bends, I guess you can kind of hear that. It's like a sympathetic vibration that causes this thing to play. I mean, listen for it. And that's just acoustically, but I don't want you to buy this guitar and then be like, hey, what's going on here? Tuning stability, I thought it was pretty good. I mean, you've got your average tweaking that you'll have to do from time to time from using the Bigsby. But I mean, listen to this. Now I'll deck it. Came back a little bit sharp, but that's a lot better than I'm expecting. Because, I mean, Bigsby's, you're really not supposed to do dive bombs with them. It's more of just a shrill thrill right here. Now that we know how this instrument sounds, let's go ahead and review its condition. Sadly, this guitar is not in that good of condition. It was described to me when I bought it as excellent condition, just a very few small minor nicks and dings here or there that you don't notice. What I received was one of the dirtiest guitars I've ever gotten, and it's got a little bit of excessive wear, but after my nice cleaning and polish job, it definitely looks a lot better than it did when I got it. As we saw in the Tech Bench demo, someone was stringing this guitar wrong. Locking tuners, you're not supposed to do a bunch of different coils, but what they did is they scratched up the face of the headstock with the string ends. And that's a big visual eyesore, but it is there. I think you can do something called like a French polish to get rid of that stuff, but I just did a regular polish job. I don't want to mess with adding more lacquer because half the time it just turns out worse than it looks already. Truss rod works just fine. The nut has been replaced as we learned earlier. Now the frets, you are going to want to get a level recrown job on this guitar if you want to play it extensively. I'm going to go ahead and play all the notes acoustically so you can kind of hear what I'm talking about. So your low E string's pretty good. A string. Your A is pretty good with just some minor buzzes around this area. Your D string. Your D string's pretty good, once again kind of similar to the A string, just a little buzzy in this area. Your G string. Can hear how that kind of chokes out a little bit. So it's just kind of like that 7th to 9th area where the frets are a little bit too flat to ring out quite clearly. B string. Pretty good on that one. And you're pretty good there. So is it playable as is, even if I'm right here in all the problem areas? Yeah, but you're probably going to want to invest in a recrown job to make this play effortlessly again. Honestly, now that I've polished up those frets, it actually plays a little bit better than it did when I first attempted to play it. Face of the guitar, it's got scratches and nicks and dings. Hopefully most of those are kind of showing up here in the light. I did just polish and clean this one. I'm not the best at polishing, but hey, I tried my best. But down here by the controls, you can see there's a bunch of impression marks. I'm not quite sure how those happened. And then right here, there's kind of like a finish chip of some nature. It's definitely very noticeable, and you've got kind of an impression right there. So I want you to know about those. Back of the headstock, serial number 128100382. Now you can see there are some impressions in the back of the headstock, like it kind of dinged up against something in a few areas. You can also see some additional dings back here, as well as kind of around the sides and at the top of the headstock. Again, the nut was replaced. I don't necessarily see any finish damage like sometimes you will on these though, so you're pretty good there, but the nut could use glue down. The neck has a few minor impressions on it, as you'll see as we go over in the light. And something to really go over here is the neck has those common finish check cracks around it where it meets the body. Is the neck coming apart? No. But what is a little bit unusual is you can feel that the body actually sticks out a little bit more right here than it does to the neck. And I think that's why you're able to see that line a little bit more than usual. It's not necessarily that the neck has shrunk. I just don't think it was actually, filed down properly at the factory. So I do want you to be aware of that, but the neck is perfectly stable. No worries about that. The back side of the guitar, I love it. There's a little bit of flame in that one piece right there. It looks pretty good. You've got some nice wood grain on this back. But at the same time, you do have a few scratches and some buckle worming marks as well. The sides do have their fair share of nicks and dings that we need to go over here, especially towards the end right here. You can see quite a large one right there. Here's how your Bigsby attaches onto the guitar. Then you've got some pretty nasty looking dings right here along the edge in these two areas and just kind of scattered about. Get those in the light a little bit better for you. Not quite clean enough for a collector, but it should make somebody a fun player. But let's take a look under Blacklight. Under Blacklight, you can see everything is glowing the way I would want to see here. These knobs, they glow like the 80s vintage ones. I mean, I don't think they've been replaced, but those glow a lot more than I was expecting. You can see the guitar does glow a little bit more right here. That's probably because somebody's sweaty hand was picking right there, which was definitely evident in the condition that I received this guitar in. Take a quick look around the edges of the guitar. I do not see any like stand rash or anything here. The back side of the instrument is also looking good. Maybe you do have a little bit of stand rash right here, and there are also a few chips and nicks and dings that I think I forgot to point out that you can kind of see better in this lighting right there. And then the neck, I mean, that might be a stand rash mark right here, or somebody did a lot of playing right here, because that would be their sweat absorbing into the finish once again, and that is right where that fret buzzy spot is at. So if somebody had a heavy hand and liked to be in that area, that is definitely very plausible. But no breaks, cracks, or repairs, no refinishes towards the top, so that doesn't mean something happened to the headstock and they refinished it and we lost the limited edition number. I really do think this is like a warranty replacement or just a small run that I don't know about. There's also a pretty sizable ding right here that I forgot to point out. This instrument comes in a Gibson USA hard shell case. You can see you've got some light scuffs and bumps to the outside toe lacks, but it's definitely in serviceable shape. You've got the 4 latches on the front, as well as a back latch and a functioning handle. And the inside is a nice white interior here. You can see the Florentine Cutaway kind of impression there, as well as the Bigsby. So that tells me this thing has been in this case for a long time. So if it's not the original, it's definitely been with it. Inside the case compartment here sleeps a warranty card that was never filled out and the original silica packet. Now the 2009 ones did come with a COA, so this one does not have that. If you think you might be interested in being the next owner of this Gibson Les Paul Florentine from 2010, feel free to check out the link in the description that will take you to the Reverb for Sale ad. Thank you, Troglodytes, for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and we will see you tomorrow on the next episode. Take care.